Hi, I'm Ree from mummyof4.com. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing my top tips for flying long haul with children. Now these tips apply obviously if you are on a long haul flight, but will absolutely be beneficial if you are traveling on a shorter flight too. Now lots of these tips are absolutely essential if you're traveling with children on the spectrum, but quite frankly these tips will apply to help make your life easier when flying with all children. My first tip is to plan ahead to avoid rushing. When it comes to doing pretty much anything with kids, it's going to take a little bit longer than anticipated and definitely a lot longer than if you were just doing whatever it may be with just adults. You can be prepared for unscheduled bathroom breaks, messes and other kid-related delays. If possible, travel up to the airport the day before. This means that any travel delays you experience en route to the airport will probably mean you will not miss your flight and you'll be well rested in time for travel day. Allow ample time to get through airport security because there is nothing more stressful than running for a flight with stressed out children in tow because you have taken longer than anticipated to get through security. So make sure you are getting there plenty of time before your flight, and not just before the time your flight is due to leave, but the time you were expected to board your flight. And all of these times can be found with your airline before you travel. Be aware of your luggage allowance. This will vary from airline to airline, but also from flight to flight, and even from ticket to ticket within the same flight. So I was pleasantly surprised to find that my hand luggage allowance was a lot more than I thought it would be when we travelled recently on our long haul flight to Florida with our 4 children. It turns out for our flight that the weight allowance for our carry-on little cabin bags was actually the same weight as we were allowed to check in. Obviously the sizes of these cases was different, but the weight was the same. There's nothing more stressful than getting to the airport and having excess baggage charges, having to redistribute things between your cases. So make sure you weigh your bags before you even leave the house, and that way you can rethink your packing choices or redistribute any weight as necessary. If you're traveling with babies and small children, check with your airline for their policies when it comes to car seats and prams, strollers, buggies, that kind of thing. Often this will be included within your ticket price. And things like strollers can often be checked right when you get to the gate just before boarding, so you can actually keep it with you in the airport where you're going to need it to transport your tiny human. Take advantage of online check-in wherever possible. So when we flew, we were able to online check-in 24 hours before the flight was due to leave. When you're checking in online, it means that you can ease up the amount of work you have to do when you actually get to the airport, when you've got all your children with you. Perhaps it's something you can do along the journey while you're traveling, as long as you're not the one driving, of course. And it also means you can choose your seats in advance. The earlier you check in, the better the pick of seats you're going to have to make sure that all your party are going to be sitting together. Now, we were traveling with British Airways and it was their policy that small children were guaranteed to be sat next to at least one adult from their party. But had I not checked in early enough, we would not all have been guaranteed seats close together. The other thing you can do with online check-in, you'll have more choice of where in the plane you're going to be sitting, and then perhaps you can choose to be slightly closer to the toilet because young children are more likely to need more bathroom breaks. It's also well worth making sure that you upload any documents that you are able to upload before you travel. We used Verifly to upload all our COVID compliance documents, and when we got to the airport it was so simple. They scanned our passports and they had all of our documents there. We weren't fussing with loads of pieces of paper, as well as having all our children in tow and stressed out from the long flight and etc. Honestly, anything you can do to simplify the process is well worth it, even if it's a bit of a fuss before you leave. Wherever possible, you can check in your bags the day before. I'm not sure if this is possible for every flight, but it was definitely possible for ours. You can check with the airline the times from which you can drop off your cases. So we actually stayed near the airport the night before our flight. We dropped off our 6 large check-in bags the day before. I actually got my husband and eldest son to drop those cases off, and I got the airport transfer taxi to take us straight to the Premier Inn where we were staying, myself and my 3 little ones. And then my eldest and my husband just met us. We had a nice chilled out evening, and then we just went to the airport with 4 small carry-on cases and our little tiny handbags the next day. It was so much easier than lugging all those big heavy cases with us on the bus, which would have been quite a palaver if I'm honest. So you just need to make sure if you're staying the night before, you've got any essentials like toiletries and change of clothes within those little carry-on cabin cases, so you don't have anything at all to check the morning of your flight. Now for a piece of advice, I hope dates very, very quickly, and that is get your children to practice wearing masks before the flight. Now, here in the UK at the moment, no children under the age of 11 are expected to wear masks or face coverings. However, on lots of flights, including the flight that we were on to America, all children over the age of 2 were expected to wear a facial covering whenever they were not eating or drinking. This is a big ask if you've got a small child, especially if they're not used to it. So just get them to practice in the house so it's not a complete shock. Often disposable masks are going to be a little bit more breathable than the washable ones that you may be used to wearing yourself. Just make sure you pack plenty of the disposable ones for when they get a bit icky or when they inevitably break, because they are really not the strongest. So you're probably going to go through a few masks during the duration of your flight. Here's to hoping that piece of advice is obsolete very soon. You can skip to the next tip. Use social stories to explain how the flight is going to go to your children. Now, social stories are a concept that was developed by Carol Gray to explain different situations to children or young people with autism who may be finding it difficult to adjust to new situations. Utilising this concept to explain to children, whether they're on the spectrum or not, how things are going to go with the flight can really help prepare them for what's coming, because a lot of it can be quite unusual and perhaps a little bit intimidating. So you can show them videos, vlogs, maybe videos from the airline about what to expect on board. For example, if you are following me over on my Mummy of Four Does Disney channel, you can watch our travel day vlog where myself, my husband and my 4 children go through the airport. We talk you through everything happening with the bags. We talk about going through security, getting on the plane, the kind of things you can expect, what it's going to look like, takeoff, landing, all that kind of thing that might seem a little bit intimidating to small children if they've never been on a plane before. The other thing that's always really good for showing children anything that's a little bit new, from going to the dentist to the optician, is Peppa Pig. There's a really good Peppa Pig episode where they go to the airport and then they have their bags scanned, and it just really demystifies it all and makes it really accessible to young children. So check out that episode of Peppa Pig if you have small children before you fly. Try to pack bags that kids can carry themselves. So make it manageable for them, not too heavy, and wherever possible, something they can perhaps, if they're old enough, drag along themselves on wheels. Bear in mind that you may be getting on and off the plane on a nice tunnel that's all smooth and easy to drag things along with wheels, or you may be asked to get on and off using stairs and a bus, which is a lot more difficult. So think, are your children going to be old enough to carry or drag along a bag, or are you going to have to manage your carry-on between the adults? And if that's so, are you going to be able to manage it all on and off the plane? Be practical with the amount of bags that you're planning to take. Considering layering clothes to deal with the changes in temperature. So maybe you're flying from a colder climate to a warmer climate, or vice versa. So you want layers that you can layer up and strip down, but also the changing temperature within the aircraft itself. It can often get quite chilly with the air conditioning and things, so think about extra hoodies or blankets that you pack to snuggle up, especially if you're hoping your children will go to sleep on the flight. Think about shoes that are easy to take on and off. Maybe you want to take your shoes off during the flight, but you may be asked, and even your children may be asked, to remove their shoes to go through security depending on the airport you're travelling to and from. If you've got really fiddly shoes that either you or your children are going to take a while to take on and off, this can be a big hassle, so make sure you've got nice, easy footwear for everyone in your party. Think about packing spare clothing in hand luggage. Now, you might have some form of spares if you have stayed over the night before in your hand luggage anyway. Think about making sure you've got something spare. The last thing you want is one of your children spilling something or throwing something up or having some sort of accident on themselves or on you, and you not having clean clothes and having to stay all icky and disgusting for the whole flight. Nobody wants to travel feeling all icky and disgusting and covered in someone else's bodily fluids. So make sure you have got spares for both you and your children packed in your hand luggage. Think about packing sweets for takeoff and landing for children that are old enough to have them, obviously. During takeoff and landing, the ear pressure can get quite uncomfortable or even painful for landing more than taking off. So if you can teach your children to yawn or swallow, then this can help to ease the pressure. But if not, something to suck on can really help to ease that pressure, especially as the plane is descending and coming into land. Think about packing easy to manage activities for your children when you're on the flight. You do not want to be dealing with lots of little bitty pieces of things that are all falling down the seats and getting stuck underneath, and you're crawling all over the plane looking for them. Tiny little bitty toys are not ideal for planes. Think about keeping it simple, keeping it small and manageable, but not things with lots of tiny little pieces that are going to get lost and upset your children. It is well worth packing over-the-ear headphones for your children. Even though most airlines will now give out complimentary headphones, they're often the ones that go in your ears, which are really uncomfortable for children. So think about packing over-the-ear headphones and make sure you bring the wire that often comes with them. Often children will use wireless headphones in the house, but the wire that usually comes with these headphones will be needed if you want to plug into the plane's in-house entertainment. These over-the-ear headphones also double up as like an ear defender because airplanes can be really, really noisy, which can be a bit overstimulating for children, especially if they're on the spectrum. So blocking out some of this noise can help them relax and also help them sleep if that's something you want them to do. Audiobooks are a really good idea for plane travel. If your children are not yet into audiobooks, now is the time to download some. You can get a free audiobook with an Audible trial. I will put the link for that down below. And that's one free book that you can grab for your children to listen to on the flight. Audiobooks have the benefit of being able to relax your child and perhaps allow them to drift off to sleep more than if they were watching something, and really help them calm down if they're getting a little bit stressed out. Flight time is time to embrace screen time, even if it's not something you encourage the rest of the time. If there is one time you're going to allow your children to have more screen time, it's when you're flying, because it's a time you really need them to sit still, you really need them to be entertained and not upset and grumpy. So make sure that your children's devices, or whichever devices you're taking, have got plenty of charge in them. You've packed chargers for when they go flat, and that all of the content you want them to consume, whether it's games or audiobooks or films, whatever it might be, is actually downloaded to the device. Because although there may be Wi-Fi available on board, it is probably A, expensive, and B, just not very good. So make sure everything is downloaded onto whichever device you're taking and can be used totally offline. It's also worth mentioning that to go through security, you are going to need to be able to prove that the device can turn on. So it's got to have enough charge in it. Even if you've taken a charger with you and planning to charge it on board, it's got to be able to turn on to get through security to check that it is in fact safe to board the aircraft. Pack all the snacks. So even if there are meals included in your flight, make sure you have packed snacks for yourself and your children. Maybe you and your children will be hungry at times where the meals are not coming round. Maybe the meals may not be to their liking, and maybe the snacks may be needed just to keep them calm throughout the flight. Consider packing a neck pillow. I know that the neck pillows we took on our long haul flight were an absolute game changer. It meant the children could be comfortable going to sleep, even though there wasn't really much room to spread out. And it meant they actually got some sleep on the flight and they weren't totally cranky when we landed. These neck pillows we did pack in our hand luggage, but if your hand luggage is quite squashed, you can then attach them to a bag with a little clip, or even just wear them through the airport to get them through and carried from one mode of transportation to another. Maybe worth considering an eye mask or a sleepy mask for your children. Now, as a complete fluke, one of my daughters chose a comic in the airport on the way to getting onto our flight, and it had a little sleepy mask on it. She loved it, and she actually wore it on the flight and it helped her fall asleep. So since then I've bought these sleep masks for my children. Obviously it helps to block out the light and may help them to go to sleep even if it's a little bit bright on the aeroplane. Utilise the information as well as the entertainment on the headrest screens on your flight. Often there'll be lots of interesting information about where you're going, about how far you've been. There may be different views of the aircraft that you can see, and perhaps the most important one, the "are we nearly there yet? How long is left until we get there?" information that you can give to your children via these headrests, as well as obviously all the in-flight entertainment that may be available for them too. Make use of toilet breaks before you board the aircraft, and most importantly before takeoff and landing, because during these times you will not be permitted to get out of your seat, even if it's a toilet emergency. So make sure they have been for a wee, even if they are absolutely insistent that they do not need to go. Take them to at least try and have a wee before takeoff and landing. Utilise priority boarding. Ask if your airline is offering priority boarding for people with small children, and this will often give you an opportunity to get onto the aircraft first when it's all a little bit calmer and give you a bit of a chance to get on and get settled before everyone else boards. And then don't rush off the plane when it lands. Often when it lands it can be a bit of a mad dash and it all feels a bit manic. Just breathe, let everyone else get off in the rush. You take your time to gather your children together, gather your things, and you can get off at your own pace towards the end of the debarkation process. then just manage your expectations. Flying with children is not going to come without its hiccups, but obviously the end result, the wonderful holiday that I'm sure you're going on, will be totally worth it. So take a deep breath. Do not stress when your children are making more noise than you think perhaps they should. Don't worry about other people judging you. Everyone has been there. Everyone that's ever travelled with children has felt that, oh, am I disturbing other people? People will be more sympathetic than you realise. And as long as you're polite to the crew, the airline staff will be more than happy to help you if you're having any troubles. So if you need something, just be polite about it and ask, and I'm sure they'll be able to assist you. So let me know where you are travelling and how old your children will be when they fly and which of these tips you are going to be utilising. Make sure you check out my travel day vlog over on my Mummy of Four Does Disney channel, because that has got lots of travel tips and it's something you can show your children about the real experience of getting on a plane. So that video is on screen now, along with some other videos you may find interesting. Thanks so much for watching. I shall see you guys in another video really soon. Bye.